everyone, I'm Namita Piparaya and welcome to Yoga Nama. Today I thought we would look at the British royal family situation to understand it, one, from a woman's perspective, and second, to see how Ayurveda can help us understand life situations a little bit better. The first thing I did when I read about the situation was try to put myself in Meghan's shoes, and that was easier for me to do for one reason alone, that I have been in a similar situation where you might be okay or indifferent towards the guy, but adjusting with the family is a big task, and that is not easy for most women, no matter how privileged you are. So when I was getting into the first marriage, I barely knew the guy. It was through one of those shadi type websites. Met the guy once or twice, then the parents met and things were progressing. But the very first time I met the parents, nothing against them. No one's good or bad. I want to put that disclaimer out there. Once I met the parents, I knew I couldn't adjust in that environment. It was very different from the kind of upbringing I had had. So that first meeting, gave me a doomsday type feeling, and I wanted to exit that situation from then onwards. And I tried to do that in many different ways, but under duress, the marriage happened. The guy is one aspect of it, right? You may like the guy, you may have a very strong connection with the guy, which in my case wasn't even there. Even then, even if you have that connection, adjusting with parents or family is a very difficult task. One, it is highly traumatic because women in general are just plucked out from their childhood home and planted into a new place. There is not enough kindness, compassion, support given to women to help them transition. They're suddenly put into this whirlpool of expectations and responsibilities which they may or may not have been prepared for. It might be slightly easy if you have an understanding husband, but after a point, I think even men get really drained by this friction. So I think in a way it's traumatic for men as well. So to that extent, I can empathize, not just with Meghan, but I think a lot of women who are expected to suddenly adjust in a toxic environment, irrespective of their own feelings and irrespective of what is right or wrong. The need to adjust because that is what you should do is meaningful at times, but at times it restricts progress, growth, and evolution in general. So in summary, I just want to use this story to highlight that it is difficult for women who just planted from one place to the other. I think irrespective, whatever the marriage is, the sense of entitlement that sometimes people have that against women is not nice. And I think there should be a culture of making it easier for women to do that transition into new house and create a space of kindness and compassion. So in the long run, the families can be happier. But the problem is the woman before them suffered a lot of trauma which was unresolved, has a lot of expectations which are not being met by their own husbands, and that often falls on the next generation, restricting their growth, happiness, and evolution. That was my takeaway, a reiteration of the problems that exist in our families at a royal scale though. Secondly, when I tried watching the Netflix show. To be honest, I found it rather boring. I just fast forwarded a lot of it. So disclaimer, I didn't really see it fully because I couldn't really stay connected with it. I could empathize with the fact that these people wanted themselves to be heard, and I think it's not easy to be on the receiving end of a lot of criticism that they got, and they just wanted their platform. But I don't think they have resolved their grievances fully. If I was going to do a national level or a world level show, you would first resolve your issues through therapy or through your own journey. When you have healed a little bit, that is when I would come out into the open. And I think the fact that they haven't really resolved, they still have a lot of resentment, there is lack of closure that shows through in their demeanor or in how they're talking, which kind of subconsciously, I think, puts off the person who's listening to it. And here I think the emotion that I took away, which was present there, was a fair bit of resentment. And I think resentment is very fair to them because they were really pushed into a corner from whatever I have understood about their story. And resentment is a form of pitta dosha. It is a form of suppressed anger. Resentment is what they're trying to resolve. I went through a lot of resentment at some point in my life as well, and I think it's one of the worst emotions. I think it is a feeling that really caused the most damage to me, and I held on to it for a long time. So let's go back to Ayurveda. What is the opposite of resentment, or what are the kind of emotions that we can cultivate to counter it? Well, number one is gratitude. I think gratitude is a form of kindness. It is a very soft, soothing emotion which would help us counter the resentment that's building up. So instead of strengthening it, gratitude will calm that down. So would be self care and kindness and compassion towards ourselves as well as towards others, including the people who may have been responsible for our misery, as we would call it. So that would mean forgiveness. So, gratitude and forgiveness is what we would need to inculcate, and it's easier said than done. Sometimes we need help, sometimes we need therapy, sometimes we need a lot of introspection. We need to heal, so we need time off. So, when I was going through my resentment, what finally helped me with is what I call space time. To just be alone for a period of time, and taking the time off was amazing because then it finally helped me come back into my element, find my own voice again, and find that loving kindness which had suddenly reduced in which the capacity of which had reduced in me because of this resentment. So that was my brief takeaway from this. Happy to hear your thoughts as well. Please do let me know in comments. And if you enjoyed watching this, please do like and subscribe so I can be here more often. Thank you for spending time with me today.